My name is Margaret Thompson, a 62-year-old woman living in a small town in Alabama called Deer Hope. This story took place over 30 years ago when I was just 28, and my husband, David, was 30. We married very young, full of dreams and hope for our future. My younger sister, Emily, was always around, a constant presence, but I never imagined she could be the person who would betray me the most, the one I trusted with all my heart. The central theme of this story is betrayal, the pain of seeing the one you love taken away by someone so close. The defining moment that shattered my life was when I caught her with my husband in my own bed. On a hot summer afternoon while I was at work, the betrayal was devastating, a blow that left me lost and heartbroken. The tone of this narrative is deeply sad, but also filled with strength and overcoming. The emotion I want to convey is the pain that feels endless, but, over time, gives way to hope for a new beginning. The setting is our small white house on a quiet street, with the scent of jasmine in the heavy afternoon air. The sun shone brightly outside, but inside me, there was only darkness. I caught my sister with my husband in my bed. Just saying those words aloud still makes my heart ache, even after all these years. It was a scorching summer afternoon in Fairhope, Alabama, the kind of day when the heavy scent of jasmine hangs thick in the air and the sunlight feels almost too bright to bear. I was at work, believing everything in my world was safe and secure. But when I walked through that front door, the peace I thought I had shattered into a million pieces. You see, betrayal isn't just a broken promise. It's a quiet, creeping shadow that slowly consumes the very foundation of your trust. And when that shadow is cast by the ones closest to you, the pain cuts deeper than any wound I've ever known. How do you rebuild a life when the people you love most become the ones who hurt you the deepest? How does a woman find the strength to rise again after such a devastating blow? Before I tell you everything, I want you to pause for a moment and think, if this happened to you, would you find the courage to forgive, or would you let the pain define you forever? If you want to hear more of this story, one of heartbreak, resilience, and ultimately, hope, make sure to subscribe and hit the notification bell so you don't miss a single moment of this journey. Let me take you back to where it all began. It was one of those late summer afternoons in Fairhope, Alabama, when the air hangs heavy and thick with humidity, pressing down on your skin like a warm blanket you can't shake off. The kind of day where the cicadas buzz lazily in the towering pine trees, their hum filling the quiet spaces between the sounds of rustling leaves and distant church bells. The sweet scent of jasmine, Mrs. Harper's favorite flower, drifted gently through the cracked open windows of our little white house on Magnolia Street, weaving a delicate perfume that usually brought comfort. But, on that day, the jasmine smelled different, almost like a cruel reminder of what was about to unfold. I remember wiping the sweat from my brow as I stepped off the creaky old bus after a long day at the diner where I worked. The air felt sticky, clinging to my cotton dress and curling my hair against my neck. I was looking forward to the cool relief of our shaded porch, a tall glass of sweet tea, and the quiet company of my husband, David. He was a steady man, quiet, kind, and strong, someone I thought would hold me safe from anything the world could throw at us. At just 28, I was still young, but thought I knew what love meant, and David at 30 was my anchor. We had married young, much younger than most in town, but we were full of dreams, the kind that swirl around a couple just starting out. A cozy home, children laughing in the yard, a lifetime of small, happy moments stitched together. Our little house was simple, with whitewashed walls, a porch swing that creaked just right, and flower beds where I planted daisies and roses each spring. Life was humble, but full, and I believed we had everything we needed. And then there was Emily, my little sister by 5 years, bright-eyed and always smiling. She was the sunshine of our family, the one who could light up a room with her laugh. Growing up, I was protective of her, and she looked up to me in a way that made me feel special. We shared secrets on summer nights and whispered dreams under the wide Alabama sky. I never doubted that she loved me like family. But that afternoon, everything changed. As I walked up our narrow, creaky staircase, the familiar wooden boards groaned beneath my tired feet. I remember the soft ticking of the old clock in the hall, the kind Grandma used to wind every Sunday, and the faint rustling of leaves outside our window. The house felt quieter than usual, almost too quiet. The air inside was heavy with an unnatural stillness that made my skin prickle. My heart fluttered with a strange unease, but I tried to brush it off as just another long day. When I reached the bedroom door, I noticed it was slightly ajar. A small crack in the doorframe allowed me to peer inside, and what I saw made the world stop spinning. There they were, Emily and David, tangled in the sheets I had sewn myself for our first Christmas together. The very sheets that held all my hopes and prayers for our marriage now bore the mark of betrayal. The afternoon sunlight slanted through the window, casting harsh lines across their faces, and the bedspread, illuminating a scene that I never wanted to witness. I stood frozen, my breath caught in my throat. The heavy scent of jasmine outside was suddenly drowned by the bitter sting of tears that welled up, blurring my vision. The room felt suffocating, as if the walls themselves were closing in on me. I wanted to scream, to run, to disappear, but my legs refused to move. "What are you doing?" I whispered, my voice breaking like fragile glass. Emily's eyes widened, filled with guilt and shame, but also fear. "Maggie, she began, but her words stumbled and fell short. David looked away, unable to meet my gaze. His strong hands, once gentle and reassuring, now trembled as if the weight of what he'd done crushed him. "I didn't mean for this to happen," Emily murmured, tears streaming down her cheeks. "It just happened." Those words were knives, piercing deeper than I ever thought possible. I wanted to believe they were a mistake, a moment of weakness, but the damage was done. In that instant, the life I thought I had, the future I had dreamed of, crumbled into shards beneath my feet. The betrayal was more than just an act, it was a tearing apart of trust, love, and family. For days afterward, I moved through a fog of pain. The small white house on Magnolia Street, once a sanctuary, felt like a cage. The scent of jasmine was a cruel reminder of what had been lost. Nights were the hardest, the silence stretching endless, broken only by the soft hum of the fan spinning overhead and the distant call of a nightbird. I questioned everything. How could someone I loved so deeply, someone I trusted without hesitation, choose to betray me with my own sister? How could Emily, the little girl I had protected, become a stranger overnight? But amidst the darkness, something inside me stirred. A quiet, stubborn flicker of strength. I realized that I had a choice to let this betrayal destroy me, or to find a way to rebuild, to heal, and to reclaim my life. It wasn't easy. The road ahead was littered with heartbreak, tears, and moments when giving up seemed the only option. But I learned that even the deepest wounds can heal, and that sometimes the most painful endings are the beginnings of something new. If you've ever faced a betrayal that shattered your world, I want you to know you're not alone. Together, let's walk through this story of heartbreak and hope, of losing everything and finding strength you never knew you had. Because sometimes, the darkest storms bring the brightest dawns. The morning after that unbearable afternoon dawned with a heavy silence hanging over our little house on Magnolia Street. The usual chorus of birds outside seemed muted, as if the world itself was mourning with me. The sweet scent of jasmine still drifted through the open windows, but now it only reminded me of the cracks in my life, the broken trust that I could no longer ignore. I woke up feeling hollow, like a shadow of myself, caught between disbelief and a pain so raw it ached in every part of my body. I sat on the edge of the bed, the cool sheets beneath my fingers feeling foreign and cold. Memories of better times flashed before my eyes. David's warm smile, Emily's laughter echoing through the halls, the quiet evenings we spent together sipping lemonade on the porch. How could those memories feel so distant and yet so close? I found myself questioning everything I thought I knew about love, family, and forgiveness. The days that followed were a blur of whispered conversations and sideways glances from neighbors who sensed the tension but dared not ask. I was ashamed, humiliated by the betrayal, but mostly, I was heartbroken. The pain settled deep in my chest like a stone, making it hard to breathe or move forward. I felt betrayed not just by my husband and my sister, but by the very life I had built with them. One afternoon, as I sat in the kitchen with a cup of cold coffee, the phone rang. It was Mama, her voice gentle but firm, asking if I was okay. I hesitated before breaking down, the tears streaming freely as I finally allowed myself to grieve. She reminded me that I was stronger than I believed, that no matter how deep the hurt, I had the power to choose my path. Those words planted a seed of hope in my weary heart. Slowly, I began to reclaim my strength. I threw myself into work at the diner, losing myself in the rhythm of cooking and serving customers who offered kind smiles and small words of encouragement. I took long walks through the town, the scent of pine and jasmine mingling in the warm Alabama air, reminding me that life carried on outside the walls of my pain. With time, I found support in unexpected places. Friends who listened without judgment, a church community that embraced me with open arms, and even David's own family, who were shocked and saddened by his actions. I started to see that I was not defined by the betrayal, but by how I responded to it. One day, Emily came to my door. Her eyes were filled with tears and remorse. She begged for forgiveness, her voice trembling as she admitted the pain she had caused. It wasn't easy, but I realized that holding on to anger and bitterness would only chain me to the past. Forgiveness, I learned, was not about forgetting or excusing what happened, but about freeing myself to heal. The road to healing was long and winding. There were days when the hurt still surged like a tidal wave, threatening to pull me under. But with each step, I grew stronger, more certain that my future could be brighter than my past. Looking back now, I see that moment as a turning point, a painful crucible that forged a new version of me. I found resilience I never knew I had, and a fierce determination to live a life filled with love, honesty, and peace. If you've faced betrayal, heartbreak, or loss, know that there is hope. Healing is possible, and sometimes the greatest strength comes from the darkest pain. After the storm of betrayal had shaken every foundation of my life, I was left standing amidst the wreckage, my heart aching with unanswered questions. The world I thought I knew had turned upside down, and all I could hear was the echo of two simple words in my mind. Why? Why did Emily do what she did? Why did David choose to break our vows, to shatter the trust that I had placed in him so completely? Those questions haunted me day and night. They twisted through my thoughts like a relentless wind, cold and unforgiving. I would lie awake long after the house had fallen silent, staring at the ceiling fan as it creaked softly above me, willing the answers to come. But they didn't, at least, not right away. In those dark hours, I grappled with a storm far more violent than any summer thunderclap outside. The storm of confusion, betrayal, and heartbreak. I found myself torn between rage and sorrow, between disbelief and a desperate longing for understanding. How could two people I loved, my own sister and my husband's, choose to betray me in the most intimate way possible? The truth is, healing is rarely a straight path. It's a winding road that dips and rises, with unexpected detours and moments of deep reflection. I soon realized that if I wanted to find peace, I would have to face those painful questions head-on, even if the answers hurt. Slowly, I began to piece together fragments of their lives, their struggles, and the cracks I had been blind to before. Emily, my bright and vibrant little sister, was restless more than I had ever allowed myself to see. She longed for something beyond the borders of our small town of Fairhope, something exciting and new. I remember how she would sit by the window for hours, dreaming aloud of a life filled with adventure and freedom. I never thought those dreams could lead her down such a dark path. David, too, was a man wrestling with his own fears and insecurities. The pressures of being the provider, the expectations of manhood in a town where everyone knew your name weighed on him heavily. I saw the way he sometimes withdrew, the shadows in his eyes that I mistook for tiredness. I now understand that beneath his quiet exterior was a man struggling to find himself, sometimes in the wrong places. Knowing these things didn't erase the pain or the betrayal, but it gave me a different perspective. It allowed me to soften the edges of my anger and find compassion where before there had only been hurt. I began to grieve not just the broken promises, but the loss of the people I thought I knew. It was like mourning to ghost Molly and David as they once were, and the reality of who they had become. One evening, as the sun dipped low over the pine trees lining Magnolia Street, painting the sky in shades of pink and gold, I sat alone on the porch swing. The air was thick with the scent of jasmine and salt from the nearby Mobile Bay, carrying a quiet promise of change. The world was moving forward, even if my heart felt stuck in the past. In that moment, I whispered a prayer, not one of anger or despair, but a humble plea for strength. Strength to forgive, not because what happened was acceptable, but because I needed freedom from the chains of bitterness. Strength to move on, to rebuild my life from the shattered pieces. And strength to find peace, even when the scars of betrayal ran deep. From that day on, I made a vow to myself. I would not let this darkness define me. No matter how deep the wound, no matter how heavy the pain, I would rise. I would become a woman of courage, a beacon of hope not just for myself, but for others who have faced similar heartbreaks. The journey was far from easy. There were days when tears flowed freely, and the memories stabbed like fresh wounds. There were nights when loneliness wrapped around me like a cold shroud. But there were also moments of unexpected joy smiles from old friends, the comforting embrace of family, and the gentle warmth of new beginnings. Through it all, I discovered a truth that no betrayal could ever take away. My worth was not tied to the actions of others. It was rooted in the love I carried within myself, the love that no one could steal or diminish. And so, I learned to stand tall again. Not because the past was forgotten, but because I chose to live beyond it. If you are listening today and have felt the sting of betrayal, know this: healing is possible. Strength can grow from the ashes of pain. And even in the darkest nights, dawn is waiting. The days and weeks that followed my quiet vow to rise above the pain were some of the most difficult I've ever faced. Forgiveness, I quickly learned, is not a one-time event or a simple phrase uttered in passing. It is a daily act of choice to unclench your fists from the bitterness and anger that threaten to consume your heart and mind. Each morning, I woke with a heavy knot twisting in my stomach, memories flooding in with a relentless force, whispering the what-ifs and might-have-beens. But I reminded myself, over and over, that I was more than the sum of my heartbreak. I was still Margaret, still the woman who could laugh, love, and live again. Rebuilding my life wasn't just about fixing the cracks in the walls of our old white house on Magnolia. Street Tit was about rebuilding the foundation of who I was as a person. I began to find solace in the simple, everyday moments that had once felt ordinary, but now held new meaning. I spent hours tending to my garden, planting bright marigolds and fragrant lavender, their colors and scents weaving a tapestry of hope in the warm Alabama sun. The soft dirt between my fingers grounded me, reminding me that growth can come even after the harshest winters. In the kitchen, I rediscovered my love for baking. The scent of cinnamon and apples filled the rooms as I baked pies and cookies, the warm ovens a contrast to the cold Aiken side. I imagined David and Emily enjoying the sweet treats, even if they were no longer part of my life. And in those small acts, I found a measure of peace. Evenings were my favorite time. Sitting on the old porch swing, I watched the sun sink low behind the pine tree, painting the sky with brilliant streaks of orange, pink, and purple. The gentle breeze carried the familiar scent of jasmine, mingled with the distant salty tank of Mobile Bay. In those quiet moments, I felt connected to something bigger than my pain, a reminder that life, in all its beauty and heartbreak, moves forward. My church community became a lifeline. The women there, many of whom carried their own scars and stories of survival, wrapped me in a blanket of love and prayers. They didn't offer empty platitudes or shallow comfort. Instead, they shared their truths, their tears, and their strength. Listening to their stories, I found reflections of my own journey, glimmers of hope amid the darkness. We prayed together, held each other's hands through the storms, and celebrated the small victories of healing. David left town shortly after the betrayal came to light. His departure was quiet, almost ghost-like, leaving behind an ache as hollow as the empty chair at our kitchen table. I won't light hurt to say goodbye to the man I once loved so deeply, but in that farewell, I also found relief. I realized that holding on to what was lost only chained me to the past and delayed my healing. Instead, I chose to focus on what I could control: my future, my happiness, and my peace. Emily and I never fully reconciled. Some wounds run too deep to mend completely, no matter how much time passes. But over the years, the sharp edges of my pain dulled. I learned to carry my love for her separately from the hurt she caused. A difficult, sometimes heartbreaking, but ultimately freeing lesson. It meant accepting that some people are part of our story but not part of our journey forward. Slowly, the days began to grow lighter. Laughter returned to my home, first in small, hesitant bursts, then with growing ease. I started volunteering at the local library, reading stories to children whose eyes sparkled with wonder and innocence. Their joy was infectious, and their questions reminded me of the beauty in simple curiosity and hope. Music became another balm for my soul. I dusted off my old guitar, the one David had given me when we first married, and began to strum again. The gentle melodies echoed through the rooms of my home, weaving threads of resilience and grace into the fabric of my days. Each chord was a prayer, a song of sorrow, strength, and the promise of new beginnings. Looking back now, I see that betrayal was not the end of my story. It was a painful chapter that taught me who I truly was beneath the surface. A woman of strength, faith, and unwavering hope. A woman who could endure the darkest nights and still find the courage to greet the dawn. If you're walking through a similar storm, know this: you are not alone. Healing is possible. Strength can grow from the ashes of pain. And even in the darkest nights, dawn is waiting, ready to bring light, warmth, and the promise of a new day. After the hardest months had passed, I began to rebuild my world in ways I never imagined possible. The quiet pain that had once consumed me gradually softened, replaced by a growing sense of hope and renewal. I threw myself into new projects, planting flowers in my garden that bloomed brighter than ever. Each petal a small victory over the darkness that had once threatened to swallow me whole. I started attending church more regularly, not just on Sundays, but during the week as well. There, I found solace in hymns that stirred my soul and prayers that carried my burdens to a higher power. The pastor's words spoke directly to my heart, reminding me that even in suffering, there is purpose and grace. But perhaps the most surprising gift of that season was the unexpected friendships I formed. Women from all walks of life, each carrying their own scars and stories, came alongside me. We shared tears and laughter, supported each other through hard days, and celebrated the milestones of healing. Their presence became a lifeline, a reminder that I was not alone on this journey. In time, I also found the courage to set new boundaries with those who had hurt me. It wasn't easy to say no or walk away, but I knew that protecting my heart was necessary for true healing. The choice to let go of toxic ties allowed me to open my heart to genuine love and connection. And then, slowly but surely, life began to bloom anew. I reconnected with old passions: writing, music, and spending time with my grandchildren. Their laughter filled the rooms with light, and their hugs reminded me of the beauty that still exists in this world. Looking back, I realized that betrayal, while devastating, became the catalyst for my transformation. It stripped away illusions and forced me to confront the depths of my own strength. It taught me the power of forgiveness not as a gift to others, but as a liberation for my own soul. If you're struggling today, know that healing is possible. The journey may be long and winding, but with each step, you move closer to peace, joy, and a future filled with hope. In the quiet aftermath of that storm, the betrayal that had shattered my world, I found myself standing at a crossroads. The pain was still raw, a constant ache that whispered in the silent moments. But I realized something profound. Pain, though sharp and unforgiving, carries within it the seeds of transformation. It was in the depths of that suffering that I began to discover the light that had been waiting all along inside me. As the days turned into weeks, and the weeks into months, the seasons changed in fair hope, and with them, so did I. The fractured pieces of my heart slowly began to knit back together, stronger and wiser than before. I embraced new rituals that brought me comfort and grounding. Daily walk along the gentle riverbank where the water shimmered, like liquid silver under the soft morning sun, a time when the world felt still and full of promise. I would pause to breathe in the fresh air, scented with pine and honeysuckle, letting the cool breeze soothe the heaviness inside. Afternoons found me writing in my journal beneath the sprawling branches of the old oak tree in our backyard, the one David and I had planted together long ago. Its sturdy limbs and leafy canopy provided a sanctuary where I could pour out my thoughts and fears, hopes and prayers. Writing became a sacred act of healing, a way to untangle the knots of sorrow and to find clarity amidst the confusion. The community around me became a vital source of support. Neighbors brought casseroles warm from their ovens, their faces soft with concern and kindness. Friends stopped by with freshly picked vegetables from their gardens, or simply to sit with me in companionable silence. The local church choir welcomed me back with open arms, their hymns wrapping around me like a warm embrace. I learned that love often comes in quiet, humble gestures, the gentle touch of a hand, the shared smile, the unspoken presence that says, "You are not alone." One of the most unexpected blessings was a stray dog who began visiting my porch. His fur was matted and dirty, his eyes weary but gentle, a reflection, I thought, of my own battered spirit. I started leaving out scraps of food and fresh water, and slowly, he grew bolder, lingering longer each day. Caring for him gave me a sense of purpose beyond my grief. A reminder that healing is not just about receiving love, but also about giving it. He became my faithful companion, a quiet guardian through the long nights and the lonely days. Music, too, returned as a balm for my soul. The old guitar, once silent and gathering dust, now felt alive in my hands. Each chord I strummed was a prayer, a meditation, a declaration that I was still whole in ways I hadn't imagined. The melodies wove through the rooms of my home, threading together sorrow and hope, loss and renewal. With each passing day, the grip of betrayal loosened. It was replaced by gratitude for the strength I had uncovered, a deep knowing that my worth was never defined by others' choices, but by the love and courage within me. I found joy in simple pleasures, the laughter of grandchildren, the warmth of sunlight on my face, the taste of freshly baked bread, and a quiet peace that settled over me like a gentle tide. If you find yourself walking through a valley, shadowed by pain and betrayal, remember this: you are not defined by the wounds inflicted upon you, but by the courage it takes to rise and move forward. Healing is a journey, sometimes slow, sometimes painful, but every step you take is a triumph of the human spirit. The dawn awaits, bringing with it the promise of new beginnings, and the chance to live a life filled with hope, love, and light. In the quiet aftermath of that storm, the betrayal that had shattered my world, I found myself standing at a crossroads. The pain was still raw, a constant ache that whispered in the silent moments, but I realized something profound. Pain, though sharp and unforgiving, carries within it the seeds of transformation. It was in the depths of that suffering that I began to discover the light that had been waiting all along inside me. As the days turned into weeks and the weeks into months, the seasons changed in fair hope, and with them, so did I. The fractured pieces of my heart slowly began to knit back together, stronger and wiser than before. I embraced new rituals that brought me comfort and grounding: a daily walk along the gentle riverbank, where the water shimmered like liquid silver under the soft morning sun, a time when the world felt still and full of promise. I would pause to breathe in the fresh air, scented with pine and honeysuckle, letting the cool breeze soothe the heaviness inside. Afternoons found me writing in my journal beneath the sprawling branches of the old oak tree in our backyard, the one David and I had planted together long ago. Its sturdy limbs and leafy canopy provided a sanctuary where I could pour out my thoughts and fears, hopes and prayers. Writing became a sacred act of healing, a way to untangle the knots of sorrow and to find clarity amidst the confusion. The community around me became a vital source of support. Neighbors brought casseroles warm from their ovens, their faces soft with concern and kindness. Friends stopped by with freshly picked vegetables from their gardens, or simply to sit with me in companionable silence. The local church choir welcomed me back with open arms, their hymns wrapping around me like a warm embrace. I learned that love often comes in quiet, humble gestures, the gentle touch of a hand, the shared smile, the unspoken presence that says, "You are not alone." One of the most unexpected blessings was a stray dog who began visiting my porch. His fur was matted and dirty, his eyes weary but gentle a reflection. I thought of my own battered spirit. I started leaving out scraps of food and fresh water, and slowly, he grew bolder, lingering longer each day. Caring for him gave me a sense of purpose beyond my grief, a reminder that healing is not just about receiving love, but also about giving it. He became my faithful companion, a quiet guardian through the long nights and the lonely days. Music, too, returned as a balm for my soul. The old guitar, once silent and gathering dust, now felt alive in my hands. Each chord I strummed was a prayer, a meditation, a declaration that I was still here, still whole in ways I hadn't imagined. The melodies wove through the rooms of my home, threading together sorrow and hope, loss and renewal. With each passing day, the grip of betrayal loosened. It was replaced by gratitude for the strength I had uncovered, a deep knowing that my worth was never defined by others' choices, but by the love and courage within me. I found joy in simple pleasures, the laughter of grandchildren, the warmth of sunlight on my face, the taste of freshly baked bread, and a quiet peace that settled over me like a gentle tide. If you find yourself walking through a valley shadowed by pain and betrayal, remember this: you are not defined by the wounds inflicted upon you, but by the courage it takes to rise and move forward. Healing is a journey, sometimes slow, sometimes painful, but every step you take is a triumph of the human spirit. The dawn awaits, bringing with it the promise of new beginnings and the chance to live a life filled with hope, love, and light. After all the pain and the healing, I began to understand something profound. Life does not unfold as we plan, but it offers us countless opportunities to grow, to learn, and to love more deeply. Betrayal may have marked a chapter in my story, but it did not define the entire book. In the quiet mornings, as the sun spilled its golden light across the fields of Fairhope, I found peace in the rhythm of everyday life. I nurtured my garden, feeling the soil between my fingers and marveling at the delicate blooms that reached toward the sky. Each flower was a symbol of resilience, a reminder that beauty can emerge even after the harshest storms. I also opened my heart to new connections. Friendships deepened, and I reconnected with family members who offered love without judgment. Their presence was a balm, healing wounds that I thought would never close. Music remained my refuge. The melodies I played on my old guitar told stories of sorrow and joy, loss and hope. Through the strings, I expressed emotions too deep for words, finding solace in each note. Looking back, I see now that the journey through betrayal and heartbreak led me to a place of strength I never knew I possessed. It taught me the power of forgiveness, not just toward others, but toward myself. It showed me that healing is a process, one that unfolds over time and with patience. If you find yourself in the depths of pain today, remember this: you are not alone. There is hope, there is light, and there is a future filled with possibilities waiting for you to embrace. As time flowed on, I began to see that healing isn't a straight path. It twists and turns, with moments of hope followed by setbacks that test your resolve. There were days when sorrow washed over me like a relentless tide, threatening to pull me under. But each time, I found a way to hold onto the light. I learned to lean on faith more deeply. The prayers I whispered in the quiet of the night became lifelines, words that connected me to a strength beyond myself. Scriptures that once seemed distant now spoke directly to my heart, offering comfort and guidance. Community became a source of unexpected joy. I found myself surrounded by people who understood pain and resilience, who offered friendship without judgment. We shared stories of loss and survival, creating a tapestry of shared humanity that lifted me when I felt low. Slowly, laughter returned to my days. The sound of grandchildren playing, the smile of a kind neighbor, the simple pleasure of a sunny afternoon, all these moments stitched together a new sense of wholeness. Looking back, I realized betrayal marked a painful chapter, but it also opened the door to growth and transformation. It taught me that even in the darkest times, the human spirit can endure and shine. If you are walking through pain now, know that you are not alone. Healing is possible, and your story is still being written. In the years that followed, I discovered that true healing often comes not from forgetting, but from embracing the pain and allowing it to shape us. The scars left by betrayal remained, a reminder of the wounds I endured, but they no longer defined me. Instead, they became symbols of survival and strength. I found joy in small moments as sunrise, painting the sky in soft pastels, the laughter of children playing in the streets, the simple pleasure of a well-worn book cradled in my hands. These moments, once overlooked, became treasures that filled my heart with gratitude. I also learned the importance of self-love and compassion, forgiving myself for the times I felt weak, and accepting that healing is a journey with ups and downs, helped me to move forward with grace. Family relationships shifted and evolved. Some bonds grew stronger, while others faded, replaced by new connections that nurtured my soul. I found peace in setting boundaries that honored my well-being. Music continued to be a source of solace and expression. Playing my guitar, singing old hymns, and writing songs became acts of healing and celebration of life's beauty. Looking back, I am proud of the woman I have become, a woman who faced darkness and emerged with a heart full of hope and resilience. If you are struggling today, remember that healing is possible. With time, love, and patience, you too can find peace and joy again. As the years passed, I learned that healing is not a destination but a continuous journey. Some days were filled with light and hope, while others brought shadows of doubt and sorrow. But through it all, I held on to faith, the quiet assurance that, no matter how deep the darkness, dawn would come. I embraced new passions and rediscovered old ones. Gardening became a sacred ritual. Each seed planted a symbol of new beginnings. Music remained my faithful companion, the strings of my guitar carrying melodies of sorrow, strength, and joy. Community ties grew stronger. Friendships blossomed like the flowers I tended, and shared stories created bonds that healed old wounds. Together, we found strength in vulnerability and hope in shared experiences. I also found peace in solitude. Moments spent watching the sunset, feeling the breeze on my skin, and listening to the birds' evening song became sources of comfort and reflection. Family ties evolved. Some relationships deepened, others gently faded, making room for healing and growth. I learned the importance of boundaries, self-respect, and forgiveness, not just of others, but of myself. Looking back, I see a tapestry woven with threads of pain and joy, loss and love. Each thread, though sometimes painful, contributed to the woman I am today, a woman of resilience, grace, and unwavering hope. If you are walking a similar path, know that you are not alone. Healing is possible, and every step you take brings you closer to peace and joy. There was a moment, not long ago, when I found myself sitting quietly in the church pew, surrounded by familiar faces and the soft glow of candlelight. The hymns floated through the sanctuary like a gentle embrace, wrapping around me with warmth and comfort. It was in that stillness that I truly understood how far I had come. The journey from betrayal to healing was neither swift nor easy. It was marked by tears that flowed in the privacy of my room, by prayers whispered in the dead of night, and by countless moments when hope seemed like a distant dream. Yet, through each trial, I discovered a wellspring of strength within a strength that carried me beyond the pain and into a new chapter of grace. I thought often about forgiveness, not just forgiving those who hurt me, but forgiving myself for the moments of doubt and weakness. I learned that forgiveness is a gift we give ourselves, a way to free our hearts and open them to joy once more. Life in Fairhope settled into a gentle rhythm. I tended my garden with care, watching as flowers bloomed in vivid colors, symbols of resilience and renewal. I played my guitar under the wide Alabama sky, letting the melodies tell the story of sorrow turned to hope. Relationships shifted, too. Some bonds deepened with honesty and understanding, while others faded gently, no longer serving the person I had become. Setting boundaries became an act of self-love, protecting the peace I had fought so hard to reclaim. Looking back, I see a tapestry rich with experiences, threads of pain, and healing woven together to create the woman I am today. A woman who knows the depth of sorrow, but also the heights of hope. If you find yourself in the midst of your own storm, know that healing is possible. There is light beyond the shadows, and a future filled with promise waiting to unfold as I continued to heal. I found that the scars of betrayal became less like wounds and more like stories etched into the fabric of my life, reminders of where I had been and how far I had come. Each scar held a lesson, a testament to resilience, and a chapter in my journey toward peace. One afternoon, as I sat on the porch watching the sunlight dance through the leaves, I felt a deep sense of gratitude. The pain that once consumed me had transformed into strength, and the darkness I had walked through gave way to light. I found joy in the simple things, the laughter of my grandchildren as they played in the yard, the warmth of a neighbor's smile, the soft melodies that floated from my guitar. These moments, once overlooked, became treasures that filled my heart. Community remained a cornerstone of my healing. Together with friends and family, we shared our stories, supported one another, and celebrated the small victories that come with time and patience. Through it all, faith sustained me. It was the quiet whisper in my heart, the steady anchor in the storm, and the source of hope that carried me forward. Looking back, I see a life transformed, not defined by betrayal, but by the courage to forgive, to heal, and to love again. If you are on your own journey of healing, remember, you are not alone. There is hope, and there is light waiting to guide you home. In the gentle embrace of time, I learned to cherish the new rhythms of my life. The pain that once felt overwhelming had softened into a quiet companion, a reminder of my journey and the strength I had discovered within. Each day brought opportunities to embrace joy, to nurture connections, and to find peace in the present moment. My garden flourished, a living testament to resilience and renewal. The vibrant blooms mirrored the growth in my heart, each petal a symbol of hope blossoming from the ashes of pain. I found solace in tending to the earth, feeling the soil's coolness beneath my fingertips and the sun's warmth on my face. Music remained a cherished refuge. The strings of my guitar sang melodies that carried my story notes of sorrow, healing, and ultimately, love. Playing beneath the wide Alabama sky, I felt a deep connection to the world and to myself. Relationships evolved with grace. Some deepened in understanding and compassion, while others gently faded, making space for new beginnings. I learned the power of setting boundaries, honoring my well-being, and embracing self-love. Faith continued to be my guiding light. In moments of doubt, I found strength in prayer and the comforting presence of my church community. Their unwavering support reminded me that I was never alone on this path. Looking back, I see a tapestry woven with threads of loss and hope, grief and healing. Each thread, though sometimes painful, contributed to the woman I am today, a woman of resilience, faith, and boundless hope. If you are walking your own path through pain, remember, healing is possible. With time, love, and patience, you too can find peace and joy once more. As I sit here now, in the quiet of my home on Magnolia Street, I find myself reflecting on a journey that has spanned decades, one marked by heartbreak, betrayal, pain, and ultimately, healing. The memories of that scorching summer afternoon in Fairhope, when I caught my sister with my husband in my bed, are still vivid, etched into my soul like a scar that both aches and reminds me of how far I've come. Those days of sorrow and disbelief felt endless at the time, like a storm that would never pass. But with the gentle passage of time, the storm did indeed give way to calm, and the shattered pieces of my heart began to find their place again. I have learned, in the most profound ways, that betrayal is not the end of a story. It's a painful chapter, yes, but it also holds within it the seeds of transformation. That moment of devastation forced me to look deep within myself and confront truths I might otherwise have avoided. It tested the very core of my being, pushing me to my limits and then beyond, revealing a resilience I had never known I possessed. I discovered that the heart is far stronger than we imagine, capable of breaking and mending, of sorrow and joy, of loss and hope. The journey was never easy. There were days when the weight of grief threatened to suffocate me, when tears flowed freely and the silence of the night felt unbearable. There were moments of doubt when I questioned whether I could ever trust again or find peace in a world that had been so cruel. Yet, through every dark hour, I found flickers of light, small acts of kindness, the steady support of friends and community, the soothing power of music and prayer. I came to understand that forgiveness is not about forgetting or excusing the pain inflicted by others. It is about freeing ourselves from the chains of bitterness and anger, allowing space for healing and growth. Forgiving my sister and my husband was one of the most difficult things I have ever done, but it was also one of the most liberating. It did not mean reopening doors to betrayal, but rather closing them with grace, so I could walk forward without the burden of resentment. In the years since, my life has blossomed in ways I never thought possible. I have nurtured my garden, both the one in my backyard, bursting with vibrant blooms, and the garden of my soul, rich with hope and renewed faith. I have found joy in simple pleasures, the laughter of grandchildren playing on the porch, the soft melodies that drift from my guitar strings, the warmth of a neighbor's smile. Each day is a gift, a new beginning, a chance to live with purpose and love. I have also learned the power of setting boundaries, honoring my worth, and surrounding myself with those who uplift and cherish me. Not all relationships survived the storms, but those that did grew stronger, rooted in honesty and compassion. I have grown to love myself deeply, embracing imperfections and celebrating the strength born from pain. So, I ask you, if you are walking through your own valley of betrayal or heartbreak, what will you choose? Will you allow the pain to define you, or will you find the courage to rise above it? Will you hold on to the bitterness, or will you open your heart to healing and hope? The path is never easy, but it is always possible. My story is just one of many, a testament to the indomitable spirit that resides within us all. I share it not to dwell on the pain, but to shine a light for those still struggling in the dark. You are not alone. There is a community waiting to hold you, stories to inspire you, and strength within you waiting to be uncovered. If my journey has touched your heart, I invite you to subscribe to this channel and activate the notification bell. That way, you won't miss the stories of hope, courage, and resilience that continue to unfold here. I read every comment with love and gratitude, and I encourage you to share your own experiences, so together, we can heal and grow. Before you go, I encourage you to watch the next story that will appear on your screen. It is the tale of another brave woman who faced hardship and found her way to peace, just like you and me. Her story will inspire and uplift you, reminding us all that even after the darkest nights, the dawn always comes. Thank you for listening with an open heart. May your journey be filled with healing, hope, and the endless grace that sustains us all.